The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, a restless energy humming beneath the polished wood and towering shelves of legal tomes. Journalists adjusted their cameras, spectators settled into their seats, and the judge's gavel prepared to call the session to order. But no one was prepared for what was about to shatter the fragile calm. A voice, unmistakably Prince's, crackled through the courtroom speakers, carrying with it a weight that seemed to press against the very walls. It was a recording made in secret, his final testament, a message not meant for the public ear but now forced into the light. The voice was raw, unfiltered, echoing fears and suspicions Prince had harbored in his last years. He spoke of betrayal, of the hidden dangers lurking behind the curtain of the music industry, and of a fight for creative freedom against forces that sought to control and silence. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence, the usual chatter replaced by an almost reverent hush. All eyes turned to Sean Diddy Combs. His face, usually so composed and commanding, betrayed a flicker of unease. The confident aura that surrounded him like armor was suddenly pierced by the piercing truth of Prince's words. Cassie Ventura, seated nearby, felt a surge of vindication. For years, she had fought shadows, whispering truths that many refused to hear. Now, Prince's voice echoed what she had lived, a call to courage and revelation. The judge's gaze was heavy, his voice measured as he addressed the court. This recording shall be entered into evidence, he declared. Let it be known that the pursuit of truth is the highest calling of this court. Outside, the world erupted. Social media platforms lit up with tributes to Prince's bravery, and the hashtag #PrinceSpeaks trended globally. Fans, artists, and activists engaged in fervent discussions, rekindling the legacy of a man who had long stood as a symbol of resistance and integrity. Back inside the courtroom, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Lawyers whispered strategies, jurors exchanged glances laden with new understanding, and reporters scribbled furiously. The trial had transformed, from a legal proceeding into a reckoning, a battle between past and present, power and truth. The recording continued, each word deepening the shadows cast on Diddy's empire. Prince's voice spoke of ambition tainted by secrecy, of careers manipulated behind closed doors, and of the cost of silence, a price too high for the many who had suffered in its grip. Diddy's defenses seemed to crumble as the weight of the recording settled over him. His eyes darted, searching for control in a courtroom that was rapidly slipping from his grasp. Cassie's heart raced. This was her moment, a chance to stand not just for herself, but for every voice drowned out by fear and oppression. She met Diddy's gaze with unwavering resolve, the fire of justice burning bright. The trial's opening day closed on a note of profound change. What began as a clash of personalities had evolved into a crusade for accountability. The voice from the past had become the spark that threatened to ignite a movement. The courtroom was thick with tension as the morning sun cast long shadows through the tall windows. The atmosphere was heavy with expectation. Today, more than ever, the battle between silence and revelation would take center stage. The prosecution called forward a series of witnesses, each carrying pieces of a puzzle long kept from the public eye. Among them was a former engineer who had worked closely with Prince during his final years. His testimony painted a portrait of a man increasingly wary, haunted by the weight of secrets and fears for the music industry's integrity. He trusted very few, the engineer testified, voice steady but laden with respect. Prince was fighting for creative freedom, for the right to tell his truth without censorship or control. This narrative struck a chord throughout the courtroom. It was a stark contrast to the image of unchecked power Diddy had cultivated. The jurors sat rapt, absorbing every detail, every word that chipped away at the empire's polished facade. As the day wore on, the recording of Prince's final words was revisited. Listeners were struck by the raw emotion, the unyielding determination embedded in his voice. It was a manifesto against manipulation, a call to arms for those who dared to resist. Diddy's defense team scrambled to counter the mounting evidence. They questioned the motives behind the recording, suggesting it was a posthumous attack aimed at tarnishing his reputation. But their words rang hollow against the flood of testimonies and the unassailable truth in Prince's voice. Amidst the courtroom drama, Cassie found herself reflecting on her own journey, the isolation, the fear, and the relentless hope that justice would prevail. Prince's recording was more than evidence, it was a beacon, illuminating the path forward. Outside, social media buzzed with renewed vigor. Fans shared memories of Prince's defiance, artists echoed his message of courage, and conversations about the music industry's dark underbelly gained momentum. The trial was no longer just about Diddy. It had become a movement, a reckoning for an industry that had long turned a blind eye to its own shadows. As the judge called for a recess, the courtroom remained charged with anticipation. Everyone understood that the revelations were only just beginning. The courtroom fell into an uneasy silence as a new witness took the stand, an industry insider whose testimony promised to peel back yet another layer of the music world's guarded secrets. Her voice was steady but laced with emotion as she recounted the culture of fear and control that had gripped the industry for decades. She spoke of artists' pressure to conform, of whispered threats, and of a system that protected the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. The jury listened intently, their faces reflecting a growing understanding of the vastness of the problem. Then came the moments that truly unsettled the room, excerpts from Prince's journals, read aloud by the prosecutor. They revealed a man deeply troubled by betrayal, a visionary wrestling with the cost of fame and the compromises it demanded. Cassie felt a surge of solidarity with the late icon. Prince's fight was her fight, his words were her armor. Diddy's composure, once so formidable, began to crack. His eyes darted nervously, his usual confidence replaced by visible strain. The judge's voice cut through the tension, stern and commanding, reminding all present of the seriousness of the proceedings. Respect must be maintained, he said firmly. This court will not tolerate disruptions. But the damage was done. The trial had shifted, no longer merely a legal battle, but a confrontation between legacy and truth. As the prosecution wove together the testimonies, the journals, and the recordings, a compelling narrative emerged. It was a story of ambition shadowed by manipulation, of creativity stifled by control. Cassie delivered a powerful closing statement for the day, her voice ringing clear. "This is about more than one man," she declared. "It's about the courage to speak out, to reclaim our stories, and to demand change." The courtroom was silent, the weight of her words settling deep into the hearts of all present. Outside, the world watched, waiting for the next chapter in a story that had become emblematic of a larger reckoning. On everyone inside. Cassie Ventura stepped back onto the witness stand, her posture unyielding despite the weight of years of pain and fear she was about to expose. The air was thick with emotion, the kind that only surfaces when truths long buried are finally brought into the light. Her voice was calm but carried the tremor of raw honesty as she began to recount the emotional toll exacted by her years under Diddy's control. She spoke of nights spent awake, heart pounding in the dark, haunted by the memories of manipulation and isolation. "I was trapped," she admitted, eyes scanning the room, meeting those who listened. "Not just physically, but mentally. My choices were no longer my own. Every decision, every step was dictated by him." The jurors leaned in, their faces a mix of empathy and disbelief. Friends and former colleagues took the stand after her, their testimonies painting a consistent and chilling picture. They spoke of a woman who had changed, vibrant and hopeful at first, but slowly suffocated by fear and uncertainty. Phone calls went unanswered, social media accounts mysteriously altered, and attempts at reaching out met with silence or veiled warnings. The defense team rose with calculated precision, aiming to dismantle this narrative. They portrayed the relationship as consensual, built on mutual respect and affection. They argued that the testimonies were exaggerated, fueled by resentment or misunderstanding. Yet, with every cross-examination, their arguments began to fray. Diddy himself took the stand, his confident demeanor noticeably strained. His testimony was riddled with contradictions, his calm facade cracking under the relentless questioning. Attempts to shift blame and cast doubt on Cassie's character fell flat against the mounting evidence. A defining moment came when Cassie confronted him directly. Her voice, steady but piercing, called out his hypocrisy, a man who claimed love and respect but wielded control and fear as weapons. The courtroom gasped as tensions boiled over. The judge's gavel hammered down, demanding order but underscoring the seriousness of the clash. Throughout the day, the jury's demeanor evolved. Initial skepticism gave way to sympathy and growing conviction. Cassie's resilience and unwavering truth-telling resonated deeply, leaving an indelible impression. The closing moments brought a dramatic twist, a confidential letter surfaced, delivered anonymously to the court. It promised explosive new evidence, documents and testimonies that could shatter the remaining defenses and expose truths long hidden. As the chapter closed, the courtroom buzzed with whispers and speculation. The battle was far from over, but the breaking point had been reached. The scales of justice were tipping, and the path ahead was uncertain yet charged with hope. The courtroom was electric with tension as former insiders took the stand, their testimonies peeling back layers of secrecy that had long shielded Diddy's empire. The atmosphere was charged, every revelation a chisel striking at the facade of power. An anonymous producer, voice calm but firm, described the ruthless environment behind the scenes, a culture where silence was demanded, and those who dared speak out faced consequences. His words painted a picture of manipulation, coercion, and unspoken threats. The jury absorbed the details, the gravity of the accusations settling heavily upon them. Outside, social media exploded. 50 Cent's relentless posts fanned the flames, drawing public attention and deepening the scrutiny. Public sentiment swelled in support of Cassie. Major sponsors and partners began distancing themselves from Diddy, sensing the shifting tide. His once unshakable empire showed signs of fracturing. Inside the courtroom, the defense launched a fierce counterattack, questioning witness credibility and suggesting conspiracies designed to destroy a powerful man's reputation. But their efforts faltered as critical evidence emerged, corroborating the testimonies. Diddy's grip on control slipped further. His usual confidence gave way to frustration and vulnerability. The once untouchable mogul now stood exposed, his empire teetering. The music industry, long complicit, faced a reckoning. Calls for reform echoed through media channels and advocacy groups, demanding transparency and accountability. As the chapter closed, an unexpected ally stepped forward, a figure whose testimony threatened to turn the trial upside down and possibly change its outcome forever. The final day of the trial dawned with a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. Months of testimonies, confrontations, and revelations had culminated in this moment, a reckoning not just for Diddy, but for an entire industry. Cassie stood before the courtroom one last time. Her voice was steady, filled with a quiet strength forged through pain and perseverance. She shared her journey toward healing, the therapy, the moments of doubt, and the small victories that rebuilt her sense of self. The judge addressed the court with solemnity, emphasizing the courage it took to come forward and the duty of all to uphold justice. His words resonated beyond the walls of the courtroom, speaking to the larger movement for accountability. Diddy's final defense was subdued, his once commanding presence diminished. The layers of his carefully constructed image had been stripped away, leaving a man confronted by his own actions. As the jury retired to deliberate, the courtroom held its breath. Outside, social media buzzed with hope and anxiety, the public awaiting a verdict that symbolized more than just a legal decision. When the verdict was finally announced, it reverberated far beyond the room. It was a statement that no one, regardless of fame or fortune, was above the truth. Cassie stepped away from the stand, her head held high. Though the journey ahead was long, she had reclaimed her voice, her power, and her future. The story closed on a note of both closure and new beginnings, a call for continued vigilance, reform, and the courage to speak truth to power.